I've been struggling with this talk, to be honest. I've been getting some questions the past few days I want to address, and then it was like, oh, there goes my talk. I'm writing a series of, not articles, texts about my ISO work from 2018 till now. So it's a tangle of ideas, and I don't really want to commit to those ideas on record yet. So I'll do my best. I concocted a kind of overview talk. It's processing, mostly, except where it isn't, where I'm escaping. So I'm going to boot it up. There's might be a crash or several crashes, normally one, but we'll see. And we are go. Yeah, I will crash, so it's coming, it's coming. Doing the pre-calc. I hope it's coming. These are all the things I have to switch to. There we are. So it's basically a talk about generative art. So what I did is the usual. I spent 75% of my preparation time on the title slides and not getting any further. Trying to get it better, getting the little sphere trace dots on the right place, getting the sphere intersections, a nice shader, getting the font too. And after this, yeah, nobody will ever see it again, but okay, time well spent, so there it is. That's enough about the art, so let's talk about me. I am a after-hour hobbyist. I have a full-time job. I'm a medical radiation physicist. I know it's not uncommon to combine art with a full-time job, but my full-time job is outside of the artosphere. It's definitely, it's in the cancerosphere in healthcare. My main job is radiotherapy. It's better. Is it better? It's better. It's a very small Goldilocks zone. Okay. So what does that mean? Just to give some context where I'm coming from, this is my coding office. That's in the morning I have this office for 25 minutes, and in the evening I get it back for 25 minutes. During COVID, I had an entire suite. Now I have a bench, but still, it's okay. That's where I do most of the coding. The thinking is the entire day and night. And sometimes, yes, the nights are used for coding also, although with progressing numbers and age, that is decreasing a bit. But not tonight. For me, so I've been doing this since the early 2000s. I started with calling myself a creative coder. Then the term creative coding became synonymous for web design, and I'm not designing a website. So then I called myself, I don't know, the things I made I called constructs. I didn't want to call them art. Then I started to use the term generative art and artist, and I still use that. And I stick to generative artist for the moment. I do not mind the other connotations. I mean, things happen. For me, it's interesting to have the combination, you know, the bogus story about the left brain and the right brain. You have an entirely creative brain and you have an entire analytic brain, and they are both working nicely together. What I've heard a lot, and that's common, is, are you a radiologist? No. I'm a medical radiation physicist. So I'm not a doctor. I do have patients in a way, but I'm not medically responsible. I'm responsible for something else. So that means I do not take images. So that's my knee already 12 years ago. That's depressing to think about it, but that's my knee 12 years ago. It still looks the same. But that's not what my day job entails. My day job is working with images. And from that images, I work together with a team of other physicists, of doctors, nurses, technologists, to actually devise cancer treatments using high energy radiation. So cancer has currently three big ways of being treated. Actually, nowadays 4. We are living through a revolution. So you have the surgery, you have the chemotherapy. Now you have increasingly immunotherapy, which is progressing very rapidly with very promising results. And you have radiotherapy. And radiotherapy has the same place as surgery. It is meant to treat the tumor, but it's without surgery. So we use it where either surgery is not possible or where prior surgery left some things behind because you have to close the patient. You cannot leave holes. So sometimes things are left behind. So for example, I put a patient. They are images, but that is a patient. The images you see, the top 3 are a CT scan, and the orientations you see are the typical orientations we always look at these images. These are 3D images, but we do not look them at them in 3D, and AR and VR do not help. I'm sorry, but it's fun. It's nice to make the commercials, but in your daily work, you do not spend the time digging around in the lung of the patient and looking, oh, there it is. It doesn't work. You have to look at it in the screen like that. So that left one is actual. It slices like this. The middle one is what we call the sagittal slice. It's the plane of the bow and arrow. So it's like this. And the right one is the coronal plane. That's the plane going through the heart. And so we're looking at the thorax area of a person. The middle part is where your esophagus is, where your airways are, where your heart is, and the mediastinum. The esophagus connects down to the stomach, and the big mass there on top, that's the diaphragm in the liver. And everything is okay, except there's 2 masses there that shouldn't be there. It's very hard to know that those masses shouldn't be there. I wouldn't know. I mean, anatomy, especially anatomy manuals, are a lie. People are different inside than anatomy manuals. That's why you need radiologists who spend ages looking at these things. The bottom one is a different kind of scan. It's called a PET scan, but the details are not important. But what it does, it's actually looking at where is the... Hello? Is this not plugged in? Because that would be a problem. Oh, it's that thing just... Okay. I will stop reacting to it. It's actually tracing, seeing where the body is consuming energy. The heart muscles are bright. There's a hot spot. That's good. This heart is pumping. This muscle is working. If you see the brain, you would see that the brain is glowing. It's the most energy intensive organ in our body is the brain. And it's consuming a huge amount of sugar. But those bright spots near the lungs shouldn't be there. Something is there consuming energy. And that's a tumor. That's a piece of tissue that has escaped the boundaries of normal tissues that is no longer regulated. So it's actually a hyper-efficient tissue which has completely optimized its workflow. It probably would get a prize in The Economist for being the best thing. It's unlimited growth and it's very efficient. Also, it's killing its host. The way we are delivering that energy is with linear accelerators. There's many kinds of linear accelerators, but this is one of the machines I have, or my hospital has, but I have it. The black thing, that's the couch. That's where, as a patient, the patient lies. And then the rest of the machine is X-ray tubes, monitor systems, and then the actual accelerator that delivers this energy. Why do we need a machine like that? Because we are going to devise for each patient a spatial and temporal plan, how we are going to deliver that dose to the tumor. It's actually a choreography. The doctor has a prescription. He says, I want that tumor or that node to get some number, 60 gray, 8 fraction of 7.5 gray, for example. At the end of the entire process, the patient will get that treatment. He will be put on the couch, they will be explained, and the machine The technologist will load in the correct data in the machine will check that everything is okay, and the machine will do its little dance. The role of the medical physicist is to translate what the doctor wants into this dance. We are choreographers of radiation. That's the name of my conceptual rock album. No. We do this in software. We cannot do it in the patient, so we use these kind of systems which have a model of the patient. The CT scan, they have a model of the machine. That's our responsibility to really simulate this machine. This takes, per machine, we spend about 3 months measuring each individual machine in water tanks, in phantoms, and modeling this software thing so that it represents what happens in the patient. So that's actually my main responsibility. And in the end, we get some kind of spatial distribution of those that should correspond to the goals of the doctor, knowing that the patient can move a bit. They are not really tied to the couch. You cannot do that. Knowing that the patient is breathing, so everything is moving in that area. The heart is beating, so that's pushing and pulling. So that's all kind of things that we have to take into account. We do that in all kinds of regions, and this is for a head and neck. For a head and neck is the challenge that through the head and neck you have the spinal cord. We do not like irradiating the spinal cord. Spinal tissue is very insensitive, but blood vessels are not, and if the blood vessels towards the spinal tissue are damaged, this gives paralysis in a few years, or in short term this can lead to infection, which is not good. Everything in our treatment revolves around the isocenter. And I'll show what the isocenter is after the confetti rainbow has done its work. So the blank slide is reminding me that I have to switch out and go somewhere else. I think I have to go here. I made a very short screen capture. It's an actual treatment length that's like 16 minutes, and I sped it up like 16 times. We are looking at where the feet of the patient would be. So the patient is inside the machine. Yeah, hello. And this is actually a measurement we are doing to test the patient treatment. So we have a phantom in there, the shape like a head, positioned like the patient would be positioned, and we have a measurement device inside that is measuring the radiation. And so as a patient, you're on that couch. Most or many patients are fixated with either a kind of mask or with other support material. And this can take anywhere between 8 minutes to 45 minutes that this machine is doing its turns and rotations. In the past, this was a lot of manual work. People went inside, changed the machine, reshaped the beams. We molded them with lead blocks that we mounted on plexi plates, and then we had to put them in the head. Every time something changed, we had to go inside and change this mount in the head. This is no longer the case. So as a patient, you're really alone in this bunker. The energy of these machines is about 50 to 100 times higher than radiology. So there's no lead aprons that we wear. This is in a bunker with walls between 2.40 meters and 1 meter concrete. I have never been in a bunker with a working machine. Only patients. So, yeah. And so on and so on. So that's, and what you see is the machine has rotations. This couch is rotating. What we call the gantry is rotating. What you can't see is that this entire head itself also rotates. So we can do different shapes and different modulations. And this one point is called the isocenter. And I was asked by OM, which is a science and arts non-profit organization in Brussels, Belgium. Can you talk a bit about this world? Because this is inside the hospital. People do not come there except for treatment. Also, people from the hospital themselves do not know these spaces. These are like bunkers, and only we that work there know them. And I found that very interesting. Now, it is technically interesting. For example, the blue light you see, that's a structured light surface camera that checks if that is the correct patient and if the patient is not moving. So there's a lot of technicalities in there. I have 2 X-ray tubes in the floor pointing upwards. I have 1 X-ray tube on the side pointing sideways. So there's a lot of toys to play with. But the isocenter, this technical, that's where the patient is. So I actually convinced them So let's not make it about the machine. Let's make it about the isocenter, and let's make it about the patient that's in the isocenter, because that's the important thing. And the idea was some kind of data visualization. I have to see that I download this. I didn't download. So it's convenient it's lots of numbers with time and space. So you can make nice animations out of it. You put them on the screen. But I found this too sterile for this context. And I purposely show it because the theme of this exhibition is outside of the screen. So I really want to highlight some things outside of the screen. I realize that my clock is gone, so I will talk. And what I decided to do is, instead of documenting the machine, we had a photographer coming in who didn't know the space, and we said, okay, it's yours, go in, take photos. And he was completely weirded out by this because this bunker is silencing all sound. And so he took very nice pictures, but let's focus on on my work. So I decided to do the visualizations with a pen plotter. Now, the pen plots I normally make, or sometimes make, the ones I make here, are very controlled. They are straight lines, geometrically precise. I use a store-bought AxiDraw because if I would make machine, it would wobble and lines wouldn't match up. So I wanted to have that precision, and I got it with that machine. But then I purposely messed it up by using it in a way which is not revolutionary. Many people are doing it, but this is before Bantam art machine times. I decided to work with a brush and ink because that's incredibly sensitive to positioning, to how your paper is behaving. And this is actually what I wanted. Because in radiotherapy, the thing I show the doctor, the plan I show the patient is a very idealized situation. It's all static. It's perfectly calculated. And in reality, things change and things interfere. So what I did is, while it was plotting its nice data visualization, I was interfering by adding water to the paper, which diffuses the ink, but also it warps the paper. So when the brush goes over it, it changes the shape of the brush. So I can never make this same plot twice. And I actually liked the idea. So we made a series of plots. And I'm not going to go too deeply into it, but in the exhibition, we could explain what the features were, what you saw. And you could see the severity of the disease. You can see it from the plots. The more lines that are moving, the bigger the area the machine is working in. So that's not good. And we had people after the explanation actually emotionally reacting when they saw like a mess of lines and say, what's happening with this poor person? Oh my God, just by lines on this paper. So this was a nice exhibition. We did some live plotting also there, with several series of different kind of plots. So this was actually the first time my coding practice was really connected to my job directly. And it was not a generative piece, it was a data visualization. But okay, enough about this. So back to the presentation, I guess. Processing 3, yeah. All right. Little intermezzo for me. The way I started doing creative coding was without any intent or meaning. It was doing cool stuff or weird stuff or weird cool stuff. And I've been doing that for a long time. And like Isocenter is 2023. So then what it came, let's say, sometimes play should be more than play. But for me, everything started with geometry. I have a physics background, and geometry starts with a single point. And if you have a single point, you can have many points. So you already have something. And it's one, for me, of the leading principles of creative coding, of generative art, of digital art, and I think of art in general. You build on everything you do. You make the small things, and the next thing will be bigger, and the next thing will be bigger still. You don't start with the big things. You get frustrated, disillusioned. You don't mirror yourself. When I started, Robert Hodgkins made all his fantastic stuff as Flight 404. And if you saw that, you got disillusioned because you could draw a triangle and he made floaty things and stars and galaxies flying around. But you cannot mirror yourself to that. You have to have that growth. And you have that growth in geometry. Because after 1 point, you get 2 points. And with 2 points, you get the line segment. And with the line segment, you get the ray and the line. And with the line, you get direction. And with direction, you get movement. Or vectors, if we want to kill all the joy. And with movement, you have lots of fun stuff to do. You can do whatever you want. You can have completely accidental pieces like this. You can have flow fields. Everybody has to have a flow field. You can have flow fields perpendicular to your flow field. And you can have tartan flow fields. You can have the curl of your flow field, which is a strange mathematical scientific term, but it's just some operations you do, you just copy them, and then suddenly you get this. Or even more fun, you can do the perpendicular of the curl. And you get all these kinds of nice things. And you can keep playing, which is important. But then, of course, we have to realize that we also have 3 points. And with 3 points comes the triangle. And with the triangle comes the plane. And then we have everything. We have the point, we have the line, we have the plane. And with, different button, with the plane, we get Beethoven. And any other shape we want. Of course, generative art is not just elements. It's not just lines, planes, points. It's interaction. So then I have the plane and the line. Okay, I can do things. I can have my segments interact with that plane. Unfortunately, you quite quickly discover, but not after seeing this cool thing, because once you have lines and planes, you can do vitally important things like the intersection of donuts. I mean, that is important. I know that the front row agrees. I mean, that's Gustavo, that's a hint for later. 2 donuts. The thing is, processing, P5.js, and many other languages lie. They absolutely lie to you. They tell you, I know what a line is. Tell me and I'll draw a line. And you type in line, and it draws the line. I know what a circle is. Ask me. You ask a circle, it draws a circle. And then you say, okay, now give me the intersection of that line in the circle. What line? What circle? Those objects do not exist in any kind of state or form anywhere. So that's the big disillusion. You have to do it yourself. And that's the M word. The math that you have to do, which everybody has been taught very, very badly. Math is exciting. Math is fun. Math education is terrible. It's very hard to do properly. I can't do it, I know. So it means that you have to figure out all these Wikipedia or ChatGPT or Claude or whoever who take it from everywhere and they will throw information at you and it will be correct. But there are so many conventions that it starts to become difficult to match. Fortunately for stuff like triangles and lines and dots, you find the old articles, the old manuals from the 80s, and those are still perfect. And those are the best sources to have. The hacker sources, the Demoscene algorithms that's still the best source. And when you go through that, and it doesn't have to be immediately, because while trying to find out how to find the intersection of two lines, you will find some kind of mistake, which is a fun algorithm you have discovered. You have made something nice. So that's important. It's not a goal to make correct intersections. It's a goal to make something. But once you figure that out, then you can go further and say, okay, if I can make intersections with lines, volumes, it's a bit of simplification, are collections of lines. If I can intersect those, I can intersect the volumes, and I can have fun. And I can make the next serpentine gallery as an architect. It works. Or you can say, I can slice it, and then I do something with 1/2. This is something I did, and I liked it. Why? Because when I started with a physics background and a simulation background, I found it really important, obsessively important, that what was happening could happen in reality. That you didn't have overlap, intersections, non-physically possible shapes. I have long abandoned that folly. No fear. I mean, it's a path to madness to insist on that. Don't do it. But this one works. It will never intersect due to the way it works. It will never lose parts. It will never decrease. It will only grow more complex. So if you put the shapes side by side, what I found very interesting is when I do that operation on that right cube, I'll just slice and rotate it a few times. Those pieces still make up that cube on the, hey, where are you gone? Still make up the volume on the left. You have lost nothing, you have added nothing. These pieces still make, although I wouldn't want to make the puzzle that cube. Yeah, that's what I feared. Yeah, I will need that power. I don't know. Let me just check. Nope, it's not giving me anything. Good. That's just a way of the organization telling me to talk faster. So, add nothing, subtract nothing. It was too long as a title. So, add nothing, subtract nothing is he's still working in the background. Is the title of a piece I made for an exhibition for the same organization of people about mathematics and art, not technology, but mathematics and art. And the exhibition in the Beaux-Arts in Brussels was called Order of Operations, which is a beautiful name. And there was a whole range of nice work, and they asked me to, can you show the concept of making complex things with simple operations, a completely novel concept in generative art. And yes, but I said I want to do more. And I was allowed to actually contribute to the non-typographic elements of the graphics of the exhibition. So we were looking for a simple visualization that was responsive to where it has to be used and had to have a variety of possibilities and some very simple context. And I used the so-called 100-veld, the 100 field, a 10 by 10 square used in grade school to teach children insights and numbers. And there's only so many numbers, so many ways you can animate filling a grid. So my idea was, I like smashing things apart. So let's smash the 100 field apart and just count like it's perfectly okay. And you can generate as many of those as you want. You can put them next to each other. You can put them in collage representing certain numbers without it's very clear, and it really fitted the exhibition. The only thing is this does not animate well, except the counting. You cannot really animate the breaking. It's 2D, otherwise you have shards flying into space, and it looked tacky. So we had to figure out a way to make it exciting in 3D. So I used the idea that we had, and that one is not coming to the top. And that's just expanding the 100 field into space and do the slicey cube thing. That's the official name of this. This is the slicey cube thing. And it is responsive because you can take the easy way out, and that's actually more or less the same way I used in my piece, namely you just add elements. You dephase them, so the animation looks a lot longer than it is, but the cycle of one simple cube is the cycle of the animation. But it's very hard, I found, to keep your focus on one and not wander off. So let's do that challenge with the next one. These have also existed in print, where this was then the layout for the print with single. It's the same idea and the same dynamics. So this was actually another quite unexpected instantiation of purely digital work that was created for no reason. Then I think this is a cool idea, into something that existed in print and as part of information for an exhibition in the news articles. So this was fun. Okay. The actual work, add nothing, subtract nothing, was basically a simpler version of this. It's also code I have shared a few times, where I constrain the translations to a grid and the rotations to 90 degrees. So you don't need any fancy intersection mathematics. You just need square boxes. And you keep pressing the mouse like a maniac. And it generates a plot for every iteration. And so I had two evolutions of plots going opposite ways where I selected several parts. And again, you add nothing, you lose nothing, the volume stays the same, but the perception of space changes. It takes up far more space than its volume actually warrants. And we all know people like that. So, that led to a second physical thing, which turned out I like. So that's how it looked in the exhibition. Now, if you can make slices, you get something free. Let's say you have a point and it's surrounded by other points. And this point is a bit of timid. It wants to have its privacy. So it will close the doors to all the others. So you have the lines, and in the middle of the lines, we put a little screen. And that gives that little point its own volume. That's entirely his. That's the Voronoi cell of that point, but that is not important. You can create that this way. If you read up about Voronoi in 3D, it's unreadable almost. You have to be a specialist in that kind of computational geometry, math, to know what they are writing, because literature articles about computational geometry are rarely implementations. They're never implementations. They're ideas, they're mathematical proofs, but never the actual code. Give me the code. No. And it works for permutations. So it doesn't have to be regular. The shape will always be a convex polyhedron. And if no points are on the same sphere, every corner will have 3 faces. Every Voronoi cell will have that. That's inherent. And if you define the points and some kind of enclosing volume, you can start breaking up stuff. And if you go to the trouble of doing it all yourself, you define the rules and you do whatever you want. So although a golden rule in coding and in informatics is don't reinvent the wheel, maybe your wheel will do something else. And you can do all kinds of, I'll speed up a bit. You can make spatial distributions since you control the rule. You can make constrained patterns if you like this. If you want to call yourself a procedural architect, You can make columnar structures. You define. I mean, you can play forever. And if you break stuff, you can put it apart. You can put it together again. So it also works for concave stuffs like this eggshell. And you put it together, and then you say, let's put it in two pieces, and nicely define those. It all works. So that's no idea what point I'm trying to make here, except colors. That's a point, I guess. Let's see what the next slide is so I know what my transition was. Ah, yes. If we go back to this, we get something added. Namely, if I can find the intersection of a line with a plane, I can find where I'm hitting my Beethoven. And okay, virtually assassination attempts on Beethoven are fun, but it's not the purpose, because what it allows me to do is create shapes and find out what do I see of that shape. This is something every program does. If I go to processing, and I look at the shape, processing has hidden the hidden things. It rendered in 3D and it doesn't show the back because it knows it. But if I export that and I put it to a plotter, the plotter will see those backlines. It doesn't care. It doesn't know the 3D, so it will plot everything. So you have to do something which is called a hidden line removal. And you can use software and packages, and they never do what you want in the way you want. But if we can do it ourselves, if we can have a look at, let's say my eye is there and I'm looking at every edge, and if I can see the line from my eye to the edge that does not get interrupted, I can see that edge. If it's hit something, I can't see it. But every edge can be hidden for a part, so you have to walk along the edges and keep track. I can see this part, I don't see this part. And you store that and you keep track of it, and you have something that can be plotted. So that's the idea. Now, the story of Broken is a very personal story. There's no time to tell it here. There's a reason why I went to the effort of making this. So the second part is actually that I'm taking all the parts of that broken object and put them in a nice collector box, and it has to be fitted, so it's a packing problem, hidden line. And then in the end, it ends up, this won't work, that's good. It ends up as a little plot or a big plot, but here it was a little plot. Okay. And now the work I'm supposed to talk about. The ISO systems. In 2018, I realized that I had to go to a tremendous amount of effort to anything I made. I wanted to make a plot, and nothing worked. If you see the effort I had to do to make this jewel box, I mean, that was so much effort just to get a plot. And then I decided I want to make a system that's made for plots, like something isometric, something that has no perspective, that has only lines in 3 directions on a fixed grid. That should work. So I made a program that allowed me to draw isometric manually. And I could plot this, 12 lines, not hard. Or I could make it a bit more complex. Oh, impossible triangle, woo! Or, that was already a bit harder. And here it was, okay, let's not do it by hand. So I created a system that was meant for these kind of plots. And for many, many years, I made those kind of plots. Now, the system evolved. I had generators. They create these kind of shapes. They put them on the screen, meant for plots, suddenly no longer meant for plots. I started paying attention to coloring, to shapes. This already it plots, but it's some work. It loses a lot of detail. I've started to get interested in these shapes themselves, not only in the shapes themselves, but also, let's say, this is a shape I made. I have a recipe. Maybe I can show a bit of the recipe. Everybody is okay with a late lunch? Where is here? It's very tiny, so you can just see it's many, many lines. That's the important part. No, so basically, what will happen is that we will start with a block, a solid block, for example, and then we will tell, okay, now for block sizes of 64, go through it and throw away 1 in 10. Now do the same for block sizes of 32, but do it 1 in 20, and so on and so on. Now punch some holes. Now draw some lines. Now cut some planes. And you make a recipe. And like my prints that are on there on the wall have 12 recipes of shapes which get mixed together. I cannot live demonstrate all recipes, unfortunately, because some of them are not slow, but not optimized. When I create those are not, this is not architecture. This thing will not stand if you build it. It's not attached. It will float. It will fall. It will float very, very briefly. But then I had the idea as a next step, because I made many, many plots of towers. And I have many, many pieces on Hick and Lunk in the beginning of towers and little areas. What if I just put a piece on there and then looked where the next piece could fit and then looked where the next piece could fit? I took the pieces apart and just said, okay. And the algorithm has to figure out a way. And it does it in a brute force way. It takes the piece, it starts in the middle, or wherever it's told to start, and it just goes in a spiral. No, I'm stuck, I'm hit. Oh, I'm out of boundaries because I have a simple mask that tells you, oh, black, you can't go there. And so on and so on. And then you can generate a new piece, which is always a gamble because I don't know how long it will take. Yeah, a reddish... and do the same with that piece. And find a space for it. But do the big pieces first, because then it leaves gaps. And then for the next one, you say, you know what? Take the small pieces also. I have to make sure I do the order of operations correctly. Now this one will start filling, and it will allow all the smaller pieces also, and that will start filling up areas. And you continue doing this, and you get these kinds of plots. What I do manipulate every now and then is the colors. If it's, oh, this is a beautiful image, but it's like a blue streak through it, and it's, oh, or green. It's not a green day. I want to have the green out of it. So that's actually the current status of the ISO engine. And it's all nice. It's the same perspective. But then we come to Winterkammer that actually is using... Where is Winterkammer? Hello? Its local code should not suffer from the internet. Ah, there it is. It's working more or less with the same recipe. But here, the recipe for the shapes is, there's only two. There's noise, layered into landscapes and colors. And there's artificial structures done with just saying, take every third plane except that one and mirror it around that axis, and a combination of that. And actually there is a third shape, which is the asemic symbol kind of writing that's in there, where it's constrained. You can take a path, but you cannot take something that's visually occupied. So it's very sparse. So that's what's happening here. But there is something else happening here, and sometimes it shows up, is that isometric perspective is meant, do you look on top or on the bottom of an object? Some of these shapes will look at both sides. So for example, I cannot pause this thing unless I cheat and want to take a screenshot at the same time, then my screen will freeze. Yes. The shape to the right, if you look to the bottom of it, you're standing in front of the shape. If you look to the top of it, you're above the shape and you're looking down. Somewhere it switches. In the middle, it switches and the planes fit. So it's an Escherian trick you can do with isometric perspective. You can draw a cube from the top side and a cube from the bottom side, and you just stick them together, and it fits. And if you do it with these kinds of complex structures, your eye gets caught. So the next evolution of these kinds of plots will actually be these kinds of shapes. There's lots of to talk about, but what I am going to do is I am going to leave the floor open to questions so I can act more directly on them.
Yeah, I have to. See, of course. What do you think? So, yeah, also, thank you for the talk. It was, I think it was super, yeah.
Okay.
Super interesting and very well presented, and also just beautiful to watch and entertaining. And what I'm a bit curious about with you, I mean, you have this complete different background with being a physicist and started then with the creative coding. But this has such a high aesthetic quality that I can barely imagine that this just started with creative coding. So I'm wondering how where does this talent come from, and how did you develop it, and what was before that? Did you like draw a lot as a child, or
No.
how did you express it before you started with processing?
Really not. But I think what you're seeing is 20 years. And maybe the phase I'm now is one that fits your idea of aesthetics. And maybe the thing I made 40 years ago, you would have said, what kind of dish? Yeah, you would probably have said that. The thing is, in every phase, I was happy with how it looked. But I am getting more comments on that the last years. And I think the one thing, and the works here all beautifully demonstrated, the hardest thing for me for generative art is color. If you look at the processing years, you had white, you had black, and you had red, and you made everything, or you had a random RGB pastel hell. So for many years, I worked with generative palettes. I really wanted to generate my palettes with hue shifts and the shadows and a complementary color due to some rule. But actually, I stepped away from that, and I use fixed palettes which have generative blending with white, black, and cross shading. Very similar to what I saw Manuel do with his palettes. And yeah, the challenge for Winterkammer was getting palettes that work together. The same for the prints, getting palettes that work together, but there I could manipulate. I mean, I don't have to print if I like them. With Winterkammer, what's on the screen is on the screen. It's long form.
But you
Hello.
But you never took a pencil in your hand and just drew something that you had in your head. So, like always, when you create pictures, it was always just with code.
It was with code. I do use notebooks as sketching, but they look horrible. I share them. I know there is one thing I do is generative dice. Generative dice is what I do when I succeeded in destroying my two laptops very quick, shortly after each other. And then I decided, okay, I'm buying a big notebook. Not a notebook, that's a computer. A notebook, a notepad. No, that's also a computer. Give me a word that's not a computer. A piece of paper. I got a piece of paper. I got pencil. I got a ruler and dice. And I made rules like draw points on this grid according to my dice. In the beginning, I was really rigid. This has to be with real dice. And people in the train were giving you very strange looks when your D20 for the 20th time rolled past their feet. Excuse me, sorry. Did you see the number? And I work with things like shadow, vibration, noise. So I have notebooks full of that. And I still try to do it. I have the laptop back, but still I try to do it because I think that really helps. And it's a good, and it helps you make simple ideas because your ideas are always too ambitious. Like I'm going to do a random walk of 1 centimeter, and then you realize you need by average 64 lines to escape, and it's like, no, I only have 20 minutes, and it has to be ready when I get off the train. So that's the only thing. But if you would see it, you would say you're a crappy drawer, even technically. But the idea is nice. Yes, please. We're available to talk anyway. So
sorry. So you were talking about, processing has no ability to like lines or shapes. It's something made up. Like what characteristics will you add to the software that will make it much better?
Oh, we had long fights not fights, discussions about that, but we were never able to implement it because it clashes with processing's idea of having simple things. And so the early beginnings of HeMesh, whatever it was then, were actually just that, like, this is for me what we need for a point, this is what we need for a vector, this is a circle. If I allowed to just restart and show you something, one of the things I'm missing is that circles are 2D objects in processing. They are not. They have no 3D orientation. It's not incredibly hard to do it. You can make a 3D extension out of it, but it always collides with no. You need a vector direction for that. That's maybe too hard because, for example, here the white lines between the spheres are sphere-sphere intersections, which are circles in space. And yeah, you have to write it yourself. You have to write your own circle that goes that direction. And yeah, the idea of HeMesh but better supported is, I think, still a good idea.
Like shape operations, right? Like
The nemesis of HeMesh was Boolean operators. I have this dog, I have this rabbit, I want to have a dogget. Yeah. There's so many. Computational geometry is very, very frustrating because it's so sensitive, and it's where in the limits, normally you don't think about that, but mathematics as we know it doesn't exist in a computer. Computer mathematics is different from our it's discrete mathematics. Normally you don't really encounter it. The moment you start with geometry, you start running into the fact that if you look from this side, two edges are intersecting, but if you look from that side, they are not. You get nonsense. But mathematically, in computer mathematics, it's absolutely correct. But in our mathematics, it isn't. And it's so frustrating to work with that. So I think it's a matter of setting realistic goals.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I finish with one little piece of music? I forgot. My God, he would be so angry that I forgot. Yes, my downloads. I will, but it's too noisy. So this is the official video for Max Cooper's song Through Uncertain Conditions, which I was allowed to make, which is using this engine. So it's fully generative. Yeah, compression is turning it to soup, but you can find it on YouTube. Thank you for enduring.